of Lincoln to order. Welcome everyone here this evening and ask that you rise for the national anthem. Thank you. Please be seated. The choir tonight was compliments of the District School Board of Niagara and Jacob Beam School, which is in Lincoln. Thank you, in Beamsville in Lincoln. This evening we have Councillor Njima sending regrets, and to my left in the center is Deputy Mayor John Petrieva. To his right, Councillor Wayne McMillan. To his left, Councillor Paul McPherson. On my right, Councillor Rob Foster, Councillor Dave Thompson, Councillor Lynn Timmers, and Councillor Tony Brunet. To my left is the CAO of the town, Mr. Michael Kirkopoulos. To my right, Mr. William Colossi, the Director of Corporate Services and Clerk of the Town of Lincoln. And we have staff here this evening. We have Carrie Beatty, the Senior Communications Advisor, Kathleen Dale, Director of Planning and Development, Dave Graham, Director of Public Works. That seems to be everyone. Council, are there any declarations of interest? There being none, do any members have any changes to the order of business detailed in the agenda? There being none, thank you. The adoption of the previous council minutes. I have a motion moved by Councillor Petrieva, seconded by Councillor McPherson, that the minutes of the November 6, 2017 regular meeting of council, including the confidential addendum thereto, be adopted as circulated. Any errors or omissions? Your pleasure on the motion? Motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? There being none, we'll move on to the mayor's report. Good evening, everyone who is watching in their homes. We thank you very much for tuning in and for welcoming us this evening. At this time of year, we begin the joyous activities of the holidays, and at this time, I would like to wish, on behalf of Council, all of you who have begun your special cultural and faith celebrations, a very fulfilling time of festivities and the very best in the days to come. And we also take this time to acknowledge National Children's Day and all the good work carried out in this community by the Guide and Scouting movement, by our staff in community services and the Lincoln Libraries, by all of the youth sports organizations and those who also coach and mentor in the community faith groups to help the children of Lincoln learn skills, build confidence, and approach life and the world around them with a positive outlook and a sense of personal and community commitment. The past 2 weeks have been very busy for all of Council. The most important task, however, at hand is Council's working of the 2018 budget, maintaining focus on our mutual priorities and addressing challenges that are part of day-to-day business of the town. And I would like to thank all those who have taken time to ask questions, to come in for personal explanations of their taxes, and the justification that Council is using to make their decisions. Those who have attended ward meetings where councillors and staff were available to provide on-the-spot explanations. We are a growing community, and demands for services are high. Roads, water quality, the maintenance of all our infrastructure remains high priorities. We meet again this Wednesday. And there will be a report following in the Grimsby Lincoln News, so please continue to be engaged and let us know what is on your mind. Important events for me during this 2 weeks included networking with the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, where I see many new businesses offering a wide variety of services. And credit to Anne Murray and the board for their interest in working with the town for the betterment of local business, and in doing so, encouraging all citizens to support local trades, professional services, and retail businesses all year. My personal delight came in participating with the Active Transportation Committee and the launch of the U-Link. And I was one of the first riders on day one of the pilot with bus driver Maggie. And already we're hearing about the social impact of people being able to get out and meet neighbors and enjoy the town. People are making friends on the bus, and they're seeing what all this development is that people talk about. Think about what it's got to be like for people with no transportation who are beginning to see as they travel all over the town what is going on, and how convenient it is becoming for those getting out to shop, to visit the doctor, and to get to school. They really are like free birds. And we have heard from one of our citizens who uses a wheelchair on a regular basis what a wonderful thing. She gets on the bus in Vineland and literally travels around town just seeing all the things that she hasn't seen for years. We invest in programs like this because, as elected officials, it is about supporting our community, creating equity and opportunity, and providing services that matter. We've also been busy attending the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce at a reception recently honoring Agricultural Minister Jeff Leal, who comes frequently to Niagara and is well-versed on what is happening in Lincoln. We attended Remembrance Day ceremonies held at Blessed Trinity High School in Grimsby in the early morning of November 10th, where we saw a wonderful tribute to our fallen soldiers and all those who keep Canada safe all over the world. And also at the Jordan Cenotaph, thank you to Royal Canadian Legion Branch 612 and to all who participated. On Monday, November 13th, I accompanied Senator Peter Harder on a tour to 3 local agricultural businesses, Westcott Winery, Sunrise Greenhouse, and Bench Brewery. He was in Lincoln to attend a luncheon honoring 5 leaders in agricultural excellence, representing innovation, technology, marketing, science, and entrepreneurship. Senator Peter Harder, as you know, is originally from Vineland, and he is very proud of his roots. He recognizes the importance of Niagara agriculture to the economy of Ontario, to Canada, and the world, and very generously gifted 5 of his 12 medals to Lincoln. On this occasion, he presented Canada 150 Senate medals to Mike Ecker, to Len Penichetti, Matt Giffen, Jim Brandel, and Robert Bierhusen. The recipients had been previously recognized by the town of Lincoln earlier this year in September during the inaugural Mayor's Gala held at Vineland Estates and featuring a locally sourced menu paired with local VQA wines by chef Justin Downs. It was my pleasure to attend St. Mark's School at the invitation of the grade 3 classes to discuss local government. I was very impressed with how well informed these students were and thanked Ms. Wilson for her support. I'm available to all schools in Lincoln to assist students with their civics and careers learning modules. At the invitation of the Niagara Métis Council, I attended ceremonies at the Region of Niagara offices celebrating Louis Riel Day, following which we have been flying the Métis flag on the celebration flagpole here at Town Hall. The Niagara Life Center, which supports families all over Niagara, opened their new facility at 65 Lakeshore Road in St. Catharines. They are located closest to Lincoln in the town of Grimsby. And I appreciated hearing more about the services they provide to the benefit of West Niagara residents. This past Saturday, a number of us on council participated in the orientation to firefighting at the Jordan Fire Hall. And in the councilors' comments, they will regale on their own experiences. Sometimes the personal experience does make all the difference in better understanding for council on the levels of technology, on types of state-of-the-art equipment, as well as very high levels of performance certification that Lincoln firefighters have achieved. Sometimes the report may be very complete, but the experience tells an entirely different story. So we thank Chief Hudson and Deputy Chief Blake and their multi-station crew for making this such a great experience. And ladies and gentlemen, a reminder that I will be traveling to China and Vietnam with Deputy Mayor John Pachariva, Councillor Chair of Economic Development Paul McPherson, CAO Mike Kirkopoulos, Economic Development Officer Paul Diani between November 23rd to December the 7th on a trade delegation with the province of Ontario in support of 4 local agricultural businesses looking to establish export trade relations. And in addition, the Grape Growers of Ontario and the Ontario Greenhouse vegetable growers will also be attending, and we will be supporting all business-to-business interviews. Trip information will be shared, and information on China and the missions will also be on our website moving forward and on the province's website, and we will be in touch throughout the journey to inform you with pictures and notes on events as we bring Lincoln business opportunities across the world. Last night, I took a drive around the town to enjoy the early Christmas light show, which has been expanding through the efforts of the town, as well as a variety of community sponsors and the companies that help to get them up and working. These sponsorships have made it possible to include the hamlets and villages within the town of Lincoln. It is Council's goal to both renew and go beyond the traditional retail areas of Beamsville, Vineland, and Jordan, to also include Jordan Station and Camden, and also Rockway and Tintern. At this time of year, these bright spots of color help to reinforce the message that we represent many cultural assets making up one town of Lincoln. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, you live in Lincoln, the town of Lincoln, where everyone strives to be a good neighbor and children are encouraged to achieve their very best. And also remember our Lincoln vision, a place to grow, a place to prosper, a place to belong. Thank you. The regional councillor is not present this evening, and we will move on to council reports. I've completely forgotten who I've ever started or ended with, so tonight I think I'm going to start with Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things that I really enjoyed experiencing and being a part of. Certainly the U-Link launch, and I'm just blown away by how much of an impact it's having on our citizens. Certainly from a nice letter that we received from one of our constituents that requires assistance getting around because she's in a scooter, and she has certainly become, not only is she part of our AODA committee, but certainly she's become an ambassador for the U-Link, directing people and telling them where the stops are and whatnot. So huge impact from that particular launch, and I'm really pleased about that. I'll be very brief about the councillor's firefighter for the day activities. They found some gear that fit me, which was a bonus, and I really enjoyed myself and got a firsthand education about why we provide equipment, technology, and support our local firefighters. And I really want to thank them all for the hospitality and the education. So thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Rob Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Just two quick things. I'm echoing both on the Firefighters' Day. Councillor McPherson, Pat Chariva, Brene, and myself were able to go to the event on Sunday. So I think the view and everything was exactly the same. I must admit, going up on the ladder up into the sky was an experience. Being a person who has had a huge fear of heights, actually, I didn't even mind it so much. Councillor McPherson took a lovely picture of me, thank you, and most people have said I didn't look like I had fear across my face, so that was a good thing. Just a quick note for council, OSUM next year is in early May again, and it's going to be in Niagara Falls, so I will be providing more details on that to everyone shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Well, I'm going to be repeating a few. I attended the Remembrance Day service in Beamsville. There was a very good turnout. There were a lot of people there. It was a very nice service. It was freezing cold, but it didn't stop the crowd that came. And the night before that, I was at the turkey raffle at Station 1 in Beamsville. Another packed house, quite the turnout. It's becoming more and more popular, I think, every year. I managed to win 2 turkeys. And November 13th, of course, the big excitement, the U-Link launch in town. I get so excited, I'm smiling and waving every time I see the bus driving around, and I see it everywhere. So very exciting times in Lincoln for that, for the residents. I participated as well as the firefighter for a day, and I was on the aerial ladder up on the platform. And it was really quite something to see the technology and the skill that's required to operate this kind of equipment. And it really was very eye-opening. And to put on that gear that weighed 70 pounds, and I wasn't even doing anything. So I can't imagine the guys, the training required to, the skill and physical strength to go up a ladder with a hose and all that equipment on. I just can't imagine, but I thank them. It was really, really great, and I really appreciated being there. I was going to mention the Christmas lights. I was driving around last night as well. I drove all through Lincoln checking out all the lights. I even went as far as Tintern, and I have somebody who's going to message me as soon as the Tintern ones are on. So there's very big excitement up in Tintern. People are waiting. And I think that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. I think we have to tell the audience that Christmas lights, because there weren't Christmas lights for years and years and years, it would never ever got to the top of any priority list, really. They were only in Beamsville because of the business improvement area. So we're trying to change that bit by bit, but we are making a bit of a fuss, and when it's all done, I think we'll all feel pretty satisfied that that goal has been reached. Anyway, it's very important in a consolidated community like ours for people to feel that they're being treated equally. Councillor Brene.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Kind of starting to sound like a bit of a broken record, but I do believe that I want to thank you for the opportunity for attending the Remembrance Day celebration at the Beamsville Cenotaph on Saturday, November 11th, where I had the honor and privilege to lay a wreath on behalf of Regional Councillor Bill Hodgson in the region of Niagara. And as Councillor Timmers alluded, it was a great crowd. It was a cold day, but a great tribute to all those who have served and continue to serve to keep us safe. Also attended the U-Link launch at the Fleming Center, and a great event, and hats off to our staff for putting that together in such a great timely fashion, and it's just going to be great to see how that gets embraced. And the event yesterday at the Jordan Fire Hall, as other councillors have alluded, it was a great event and a real understanding and appreciation of what those firefighters, men and women, do for our community. So thanks to Chief Hudson and Deputy Chief Blake for putting that together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, it's going to be an iteration of some of the things that have already been mentioned. I did attend the Remembrance Day services at the Jordan Cenotaph and did have the honor of laying a wreath for regional council in the absence of our councillors. So that was quite an honor to do that. I was present for the U-Link launch at the Fleming Center. It really is exciting times for Lincoln. Firefighter for a day. I went on Saturday, took part in some of the activities that were going on, things that we were put through our paces, and with things that the firefighters do on a daily basis. And I've always had a great deal of respect for what this dedicated group of men and women do, and this just heightens that respect. It is just out there. They do an outstanding job. And Christmas lights in all over town, they are gorgeous, absolutely. The ones in Vineland last year were a little tired, and now they're just sparkling. So it's really very, very special. And one other thing, the last meeting of our Heritage Committee, we had a discussion on checking out dates for our first designation ceremony. And after checking out various schedules, yours included, Madam Mayor, it has been decided that Sunday, the 17th of December, will be the date for the designation ceremony for the Mountain Mennonite Cemetery. And this is particularly noteworthy because this is the first heritage designation in Lincoln since 2009. And it is the first of others that the committee is in the process of planning for. It's also the first designation that will be done with the newly designed designation plaque and the introduction of the accompanying interpretive plaques. So it is a very special time for us. Sunday, December the 7th at Mountain Mennonite Cemetery, and that cemetery is located on the corner of Tintern and Fly in Camden. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Pachariva.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I'm just going to repeat some of these, but I'll just touch on them quickly. The U-Link launch, where we presented Bob Pecci, lifelong resident of Beamsville, with an award for coming up with the name, and the people being there that night, and I think it's just a tremendous achievement for our staff. Our staff don't work in silos. There's a lot of cross-pollination, a lot of department sharing, and this was truly an example of different departments coming together in a short amount of time with something that council had a vision for, and being a link to the GO bus stop, and pulled it off within a short amount of time. Neighboring municipalities are still hemming and hawing, fumbling about, just trying to decide what they're going to do. I say hats off to our staff for making this a reality. And I mean, it's simple. I just wanted to make a highlight too of the email that we got from Connie Groves. And Connie also sits on our Active Transportation Committee. And she made mention here in the email that she sits on of course, this newfangled phone, I can't get it to open. But there's a committee that she sits on, that she sat on for 12 years, and it meets at Adelheim Apartments up by Albright. And Connie was able to actually go to her first meeting. She would do everything remotely. You know what, that is what this is all about. It's not only about specialized transport for the seniors, but the youth and the bicycle component of it, and able to get those shut-ins out and mobile, and the day that Councillor Brunei and myself and Councillor Timmers went to the apartments on Queen Street, there was, just a flurry of questions, and you could see the joy in these people's faces. Well, I can connect to, I can get to the Go Stop, and then I can get to Hamilton, and I can get to St. Catharines, and I can get now to Toronto. Like, it was a whole world has opened up to them. So, and again, with staff working with Metrolinx and being able to have those routes interlap, so the synergies are there, you get off the one, you get on the other, just, it's tremendous. I was able to stand in for you, Your Worship, at the Remembrance Day ceremony on November 11th. Was truly the biggest honor of Deputy Mayor so far. Was a fantastic day. There was hundreds of people there. It wasn't as cold as Jordan on Friday, so I was thankful for that. And I also got the privilege of laying a wreath for the federal government on behalf of Dean Allison. Attended the Niagara River Lions home opener on Saturday night in your place. We sat courtside. The River Lions defeated the London Lightning, who had won the championship last year quite handily. They were up by 17. It became tight at the end, but the River Lions prevailed. There was an excellent crowd, probably about 2,700 people there, and a really, really cool event, and I will be going again. So,
If I let you.
I will go on my own, Your Worship. I've got River Lion fever, so. Yes. There also attended the Beamsville Firefighters Turkey Raffle. I didn't have as good a luck as Councillor Timmers, but I did prevail by the end of the evening and won a turkey. And then the firefighter for a day. I attended the session yesterday, and I mean, it was a truly humbling experience. You really get a sense of what these guys and girls do on a volunteer basis. I mean, our noble clerk there, Mr. Colossa, him and I were a tag team, and we were kind of doing our best impersonation of Axe and Smash and taking the truck apart with the jaws of life and the spreader. Will broke the window. I cut it. It was teamwork at its best. Yes. And the highlight, I think, is we're both, and Councillor Foster mentioned this, we're both afraid of heights. But we overcame our fear and we went up on that ladder. And I wish someone would have had a picture because no one would believe me that I was up that high. But one of the cool things was talking to the firefighters about, some of the equipment they used. When we went into the one smoke tower and you had the thermal imagery camera, one of the new pieces that we're talking about in the budget is one of the monitors that's on your jacket, and it also has a thermal imagery camera to it. So it's one less piece now of equipment that they need to use. And one of the other things too was the oxygen bottles. So presently ours are kind of different. They're looking to do a better module of these. So then it will allow us when we go to do some mutual aids with Grimsby and West Lincoln, the bottles now will all be interchangeable. So there's that cooperate, little things that you don't know about. And the air, I guess it had about 15 minutes of use. I mean, after I pulled that 150-pound dead weight out of there, I was breathing like, a racehorse having crossed the finish line, and probably went through about 5 pounds of oxygen. So the new ones will be a little bit heavier, but will allow them that much more time. So it was just fantastic, and I want to thank Chief Hudson and Deputy Chief Blake because, and all the firefighters that were there, giving us instruction and encouragement, and it was fantastic. Just a fantastic day.
Thank you very much. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I have a number of updates. So November 10th, I attended the grand opening of the reuse center up at the Niagara Road 12 landfill, otherwise known as the Grimsby Dump. The regional chair Caslin, and the Grimsby Benevolent Fund cut the ribbon. So the GBF is the sponsor of that facility, so it's up and running. On November 13th, the Beautification Subcommittee of the Downtown BIA here in Beamsville did meet with the town and the region, and their focus was a brainstorming session on traffic calming and pedestrian safety in the downtown, also gateway features, and overall downtown beautification. So a very productive meeting there. The regular monthly meeting of the BIA was held last Thursday, and the meeting was pretty much focused on parking in the downtown. CAO Kirkopoulos, our bylaw officer, Chris Collins, along with, of course, Mr. Paul Deaney, our economic development officer, were all in attendance. And there was a very fulsome discussion around partnering with our downtown merchants and building owners on the whole parking issue. So a very good dialogue there. As I say, we pretty much spent the whole time on that issue. Having Chris there was good for where we're going with bylaw enforcement. But just a really good two-way conversation with the BIA and some action items coming out of that the BIA are going to take on. Lastly, I did attend the Lamplighter Series last Friday night, which is the Rotary Club of Lincoln puts on their annual live theater. And there's 4 plays that are presented in 4 locations in the village of Jordan. And it is unbelievable, the talent. These are all local artists, local writers, local actors. The theme was Canada, of course, with the Canada 150. Canada from 1867 through to 2067. So each one of the plays was a time in that period, and you know, it was you know, really inspiring to see live theater here, alive and well in Lincoln, you know, at least once a year. So that was a great event. So hats off to the Rotary Club for that that whole event. Well attended. You know, I think they ran 6 times Friday night, 6 Saturday, 3 Saturday night, 3 or 6 Sunday. I mean, they just go. So a lot of acting goes on in a very short period of time. So if you missed it this year, make sure you get your tickets early next year, because it is a great event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Council, we have a scheduled delegation this evening. And before I introduce the representatives from Metrolinx, I want to introduce Matt Robinson to you. Matt is sitting in the second row. And Matt is the director. He was the director of GO implementation. His duties have changed a little bit, but he's still the person at the region that we look to. And I want to recognize Matt because he is the person that you should know carried a pretty heavy load when that proposal was going forward, when Niagara was not on the agenda. And I give Matt a lot of credit for the skills that he brought to the table and the advice that he gave along the way, including some of the expertise that we required. So it's been a long journey since then, and it's the reason why the representatives from Metrolink are here tonight, and they're going to be making a presentation entitled Creating Connections in the Town of Lincoln. I think they've heard pretty loud and clear how important intra-municipal transit is, and having that with inter-municipal transit is going to be pretty important. So I'd like to invite Leon Stambolic and Aaron Murrows. Please come forward and proceed with your presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Easton, members of council, city staff, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having Metrolinx tonight. I sincerely mean that. We'd like to come out to the councils to report an update on the implementation of the GO Rail expansion. My name is Leon Stambolich. I'm the Director of Capital Projects for Lakeshore West Corridor, so all projects along the Lakeshore West line. With me today is Erin Mraz. She's the Director of Communications and Community Relations for Metrolinx. And I wanted to start tonight to tell you that you make the best craft beer in Ontario here at Bench. Anyway, Aaron egged me on to say that, so I truly mean that.
After he said it's his new favorite.
It is my new favorite
Yes.
craft beer. But aside from that, we also want to acknowledge our partnership here tonight, both with Niagara Region. You heard from Matt tonight, as well as with city staff. We work with Mike a lot as well. So we're really happy to see that relationship grow and continue through the expansion. So we have a presentation for you tonight, but first Aaron's going to start with a little bit of context on what we have to report.
Yeah, so I might go quickly through some of the slides, so if you would like to ask me questions afterwards. I know that people are probably anxious to get to the more localized, specific content, but I did want to set up some context and say that the reason why we're here is that we are currently doing a tour of all 42 municipal councils where we have active GO heavy rail expansion underway. And so this will be, at the very least, an annual meeting, we hope, that we will be invited back and be able to come on the agenda and provide ongoing updates as this project moves forward to council. I think I would say in follow-up to that, that it's obvious from tonight that there's a lot of excitement about transit. It's an exciting time in transit, and we're happy to be here tonight to talk about some of those plans and how, as the title of the presentation points out, we are going to be creating connections, but in doing so, increasing really the quality of life for residents, which I heard spoken to earlier, in terms of connecting people not just locally, but within the region and then within the broader Greater Toronto, Hamilton, Niagara region, Kitchener-Waterloo. Our list keeps growing, so we're happy to be here to discuss that tonight. I think it never strikes me more about congestion in the region than when we come to council meetings like this, and Leon and I set out at 4 o'clock this afternoon in order to get here for a 7 o'clock meeting with some dinner thrown in order to get through congestion. And I think when we talk about a growing region, and again, it was mentioned by the mayor previously this evening, is they're growing communities, it's a growing region, and congestion is not going to remain the status quo. It's going to get worse. And so at Metrolinx, we are the regional authority tasked with, which is why we're here tonight, developing that regional transformation plan and regional transportation plan that will work with local municipalities and regions to ensure that there's a greater connection for all residents in the region to move around and to access both employment opportunities, entertainment opportunities, and different markets. We have a plan, and we are currently working through that in terms of the funded GO capital projects that we're going to talk about a bit here this evening. But I do want to start by saying that Leon and I specifically are here tonight because we're the build part of the team. So at Metrolinx, we have a planning department that many of you may be familiar with that includes service planning, but also long-term transit-oriented development and planning, integration of local transit services. There's the build section, which is where we're from, which is we call capital project groups, but we're the team actually tasked with building the infrastructure required to move transit planning forward. You are probably familiar with some of our operations, so GO Transit, Up Express, and now Presto. And as we develop into the LRT program, eventually some of those LRT lines as well. And then the Presto card, which is the unifier, and I understand is of local interest in terms of how that works with some of the transit planning and integration that's underway in the region as well. I would say, and I do want to applaud, when we went out to Niagara Region Council, the chief capital officer at the time is from Niagara Region and had this picture. His father actually helped on building this line, but there is a proud tradition of transit in the region, and I think there's a testament to that being an ongoing priority and objective of the town of Lincoln and the region in the new advances such as ULink. I'm partial coming from Metrolinx to the name, so congratulations on that. But it's a very exciting time, and it's great to be a partner in that and how we integrate those services going forward. I will say that I just want to give a bit of an overview in terms of where we've been, the result of strong advocacy by staff and by the region. Mr. Robinson, as mentioned earlier, has had a key role in moving that forward. Today we have already quite an increased service, which I do just want to give a quick overview to and speak to a bit then where we're going. So in terms of current bus, one thing that strikes me across the entire greater region that I travel in is how loved Go Bus is as a service. It's a great service, and people really do focus on rail, and rail can be exciting, but I think Go Bus is a fantastic service that really links up customers and residents to different locations that would never really be accessible by rail in the same way. So it's a very complimentary service, and this bus here that has been introduced in the region is a testament, as has been said earlier, to Mr. Kirkopoulos and moving to have a local stop here that could anchor a local service to it as well to make sure that it integrated with the rest of the region. We currently run hourly bidirectional Go service during the day. We run 35 trips a day on this route with stops in St. Catharines, Grimsby, Stony Creek. And on the April 8th of 2017, we added an additional stop at Niagara College, which one of our fastest growing markets, as people probably know, here is the post-secondary market and students being able to travel between campuses and connect to Go service, which is a fantastic service that we're pleased to offer. In addition, we worked with the region this year in terms of our seasonal service. So we've had seasonal service for some time in the region, and we had an integrated marketing campaign targeting folks who were interested in coming out during the summer season. And I think that the really positive results in that is that we saw a 21% increase in ridership, and that is very promising when Metrolinx as a agency, though we don't decide where funding goes in terms of priority transit projects, one thing that we do is work with municipal partners in the region on business cases, and ridership projections and potential is an important part of those business cases and prioritizing projects. So in terms of some of the planning work before we hand it over, I'm sure I don't need to say at this table that in the original plan that was produced by the region that there was a stop in Beamsville. What I would say is that there's great work underway by staff. There's a planning process that continues with Metrolinx staff. And though Leon and I today can't commit to anything in terms of a station, again, we're working with a certain funded capital program that has come to us to deliver. I would say that the partnership that we've had with the town and with the region to date makes this work very positive, and we're happy to continue working through that so that when funding decisions are made in future, that business case, as I said, and all of the supporting work is there in terms of a partnership to make sure that you're ready to have that conversation. And so we look forward to continuing to work with staff in the region in regards to that station. In terms of secondary plans, we've also been active with regional and local staff in terms of some of the secondary plan work that is happening around potential and committed Go stations along the expansion. We have been engaged and working with them through the public engagements. And I think what I would like to say to council this evening is that really it's a complementary process. So we are going to be going out as well with community meetings in the coming week. Those are really about what we're going to be discussing tonight, which is I have a responsibility and Leon has a responsibility to make sure that we get out to the public and explain some of the very real and heavy infrastructure that is going to be built in order to facilitate Go service. So The best example or analogy I can use is that it's like taking a service road and turning it into a highway. It's still a road, but in order to increase traffic and usage of that road, there's infrastructure requirements, on and off ramps, accessibility features that have to be built along the entire corridor. And that work is significant in itself. And I really am happy to be in front of council tonight to go through some of that. We know from our research, but also from public meetings, that one of the things community's most concerned about in terms of the construction projects we work on is traffic impacts. What that's going to mean to local roads, when that's going to happen, what the detours are, how much lead time and awareness people have about those plans. And so it's very important that we continue to work together in terms of how that unfolds in the next few years as we move forward with construction. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Leon in terms of some of the major infrastructure components of the program.
Thanks, Erin. So I'm going to talk a little bit more details regarding the capital work that has been undertaken and will continue. Best way to talk about that is to get to some milestones to indicate the level of progress we've made here. Some key ones being obviously the announcement in May 2015. That was initially just to provide a new service and a new station at Confederation in Stoney Creek. So that we're targeting for initial service in 2019. 2016 September, as we discussed already, the new stop for Lincoln on the number 12 GO bus route. In June was the big announcement regarding the expansion of service from Confederation to Niagara Region, starting with service to Grimsby in 2021 and then to Niagara Falls by 2023. April 2017, there was the new bus stop added, as Erin mentioned earlier. On to June, where we started full preliminary design activities for all the rail improvements and infrastructure required, including stations, track, signals. I'll go into a little more detail later on that. In December 2017, part of our program is still expanding through the Hamilton area. So you'll see a few references to Hamilton, Stoney Creek area. Those are sort of the initial phases or enabling works, or sort of the work that needs to happen to provide a gateway to the expansion beyond. So the first phase in Hamilton area is scheduled for completion next month. We will also be starting construction work for the new Confederation station later this year. Some things we've accomplished so far towards, as I mentioned, all the work leading up to service to Niagara Region, the Valley Inn Road embankment widening and the pedestrian tunnel, that's in the Hamilton area, was complete in June 2016. We also have the widened Desjardins Canal Bridge as of December 2016. The Lewis Road layover facility, which allows daytime train storage and servicing, was open and fully operational in April 2017. I mentioned Confederation Station. West Harbour Station, some of you may be familiar with in Hamilton. There was some final work required there to add a second platform and a track to service that new platform, which should be in before the end of the year. Just beyond West Harbour Station is the John Street Bridge. It's an overhead bridge that's being replaced in concert with the program by CN. So that is scheduled to start construction in the spring. It's in design right now. Track work and retaining walls adjacent to the area of York Boulevard in what we call the Grimsby subdivision corridor continues into the rest of the end of the year, weather permitting. And the Centennial Parkway Bridge near Confederation is a bridge that was upgraded, and there's an allowance for a widened component, which will also serve to receive the additional track to provide service to Confederation. So those are some of the highlights. Oops. We spoke about new and upgraded stations. So the expansion includes 2 new stations, one at Confederation in Stoney Creek and the other one at Casablanca in Grimsby. There are 2 existing VIA stations that would require an upgrade at St. Catharines and Niagara Falls. So that's really the scope of the station work. There's a significant component of expansion that involves track. So we're looking at over 25 kilometers of new track. It's not just new track, there's a signaling system that needs to be completely upgraded. So to the crossings at each level crossing across the network requires upgrade. Drainage improvements, we're talking about culverts, connecting waterways on either side of the corridor. There's bridge work, sometimes expansions, sometimes widening, sometimes upgrades at various locations through the corridor. A new train layover facility in Niagara Falls will be required for daytime train storage. And we also have to expand the recently completed Lewis Road layover facility. So I don't know if I'm giving a good picture of the sort of scale of this, but it's a very large program. And given that it is a large program, we use a strategy to implement the work in stages. So the initial focus has been on the Hamilton-Stoney Creek area to lead us sort of in a linear fashion to the end. So the subsequent phases that are being planned now are the St. Catharines and Niagara Falls area. So that gives you an idea of what's involved. I want to speak a bit about community engagement. So I think the key here is that community engagement is really part of every stage of project delivery, starting with the planning and the feasibility stage. The project is introduced to the community, get some initial feedback. Again, there are greater opportunities for input from the environmental assessment consultation process. Through the design, it's more about receiving input from members of the community as to what sort of things they'd like to see the project achieve. And then during construction, our goal is really to get the work done expeditiously while minimizing impact to the community. There's been some new conversations with Metrolinx on the expansion. So the Transit Town Hall in Winona in May. We had Niagara Region Council presentation in May as well. Metrolinx supports Niagara Region at their public meetings, and there was one in Beamsville. We're hosting a series of public meetings to kind of continue the conversations around community engagement. So we have...
Can I add quickly?
Sure. Go ahead.
I would just add on those community meetings is what we're really hoping to get feedback on at this point is high level where are areas of concern. So when we talk about culverts and drainage, and we know that there are concerns sometimes or most often with wildlife and other items, we really want to hear from the community early out what those concerns are as we build out the program further. So it's an initial point of contact. I've heard there's some concerns potentially about the meeting and where we're holding meetings. I do want to say to council that we're happy to come and have the next round of meetings locally in any venue that people identify as being appropriate. These were the ones we could get on a short notice in terms of what was already booked. But this is the first of what I would say is a series of consultation and work with the community in order to build out this program. And with that, I think we thank you. I think we're over time, and we'd open it up to any questions that council has.
Thank you very much, Aaron and Leon. I'm going to first turn to Councillor Brunet. We hadn't talked about this, but I'd like to, just as the council's representative on the Regional Transportation Committee, Councillor Brunet, if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. First of all, thank you very much for coming. It's a real moral boost to see you guys in front of us. We have been waving the flag for quite some time, going to a lot of public meetings, and I think you heard earlier tonight about our launch for our pilot transit, and as some of the councilors alluded in their discussions, you know, to give these people mobility freedom and allow students to get to Niagara College. We're a community that we don't have any taxi service. We don't have any Canada Coach, which used to go up and down Highway 8 between Hamilton and St. Catharines. So, you know, a lot of those people have lost that mobility. So certainly we have done everything in our power to try to engage this and to try to support this. And certainly the GO Bus at the bottom of Ontario Street is going a long way. I'm sure you're hearing it all, and I don't want this to be taken as a negative, but we're hearing when we go out to the public, and I'm sure you'll hear it when you go to these meetings over the next week or so, that people want to engage it. You know, seniors that we went and talked to at the seniors' homes, you know, like gentlemen in their late 80s, like these people get it. Like they say, well, it seems like if you're not going to charge for this, it seems like we don't have a lot of choice. It's like use it or lose it. Like that's what their comment, and like they're already understanding, and we don't have a go stop here, but they're already understanding that we really need to show that we have a need for this. And so we really appreciate everything you guys are doing in these public meetings. And in my other life, I'm involved in construction and equipment, and so we have the opportunity to deal with Metrolinx in your projects pretty well all over southwestern Ontario. And just a week ago, I had an opportunity to be at an event up in Milton with Mayor Krantz. It was the day after you guys had the big announcement at the Milton GO Station to talk about what you guys are going to do to enhance the GO Station there and parking. And when you talk about congestion, I mean, we have congestion in Beamsville, but certainly Milton, as the fastest growing city in Canada, is experiencing congestion. And so to see what expansion of GO and rail is going to do to Milton, and to think about what it can do to Grimsby through to St. Catharines and Niagara Falls, it's very, very exciting. And we're working, and our staff is working very closely with the region of Niagara to make sure we're embracing all of this. So we bring our residents, especially in West Niagara, you know, that mobility freedom. So we really look forward to, you know, working with you guys. And I guess I would just end on, you know, again, with this GO Station down here, I know our staff is working with you, but we really need to make some enhancements down there, because we hear it all the time that people are going down there and they want to embrace that, but it's a dark station. And we know you guys are going to work on helping us with some shelter enhancements and stuff like that, but we really need to try to move that along as quickly as possible. So we look forward to you guys working with our staff, and we thank you for coming tonight.
Great. Thank you very much.
So it's also important that you know what's happening on the planning front, and then I'm going to open it up to the rest of the table, because Councillor Dave Thompson is the chair of the Planning Committee, and I know that there's considerable amount of work that's going on there. So I'll allow some comments from Councillor Thompson and then open it up to the rest of the horseshoe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Once again, thank you for coming, and certainly we're doing all we can to focus our densities in areas that are going to make the most impact from a GO Station perspective. We've got a lot of projects that are coming forward, and we're trying to really focus on those corridors and make that happen. So very appreciative of the service that's already being provided from a bus standpoint. On a personal level, it saves me driving back and forth to Toronto to shuttle my children around. So it certainly keeps me out of the congestion, and I'm sure that the other folks in town are going to be experiencing the same thing. So we look forward to certainly working with you guys on the planning front to make things happen as expediently as possible.
Great. Thank you.
Councillor Foster.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation this evening. It's good to see the movement that's going on in this area. A couple of things that you mentioned: the 21% increase in the summer traffic. I think that's a very positive sign as well, and we look forward to seeing that and how that's going to affect us as well. It's you know, as the other stations come into line as we're going down the road. I have more of a curiosity question than anything else, because I think you guys are the right ones. I traveled back and forth from Burlington to Toronto for a lot of years to downtown on GO Transit, and I was amazed at the track that was in place, the heavy track and the long stretches that are going on. So Is that eventually going to happen down and through our area as well? Like, is that the type of track replacement that's going on? Because I know, and I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form the current track that's down through Niagara is bad or whatever, but it is definitely the older style of track. So what happens with that as we go forward?
So just in the limits of the Lincoln area, this program requires about 10 miles of additional new track parallel to the existing. So that's part of this expansion. So you are going to see, a significant component of track construction. Like I mentioned earlier, track construction, unfortunately, isn't just track, it's also signals, which is there's over 20 crossings, I think there's 24 that have to be upgraded just within Lincoln itself. There's dozens of culverts as well to connect, you're widening the sort of corridor influence, then you have some drainage improvements on either side as well. So yes, you are going to see significant track construction through just within Lincoln in the coming years.
Good, I'm glad you said that because through you, Madam Mayor. So the second part to this then is as these improvements start coming into play, as we're working down the road, of course the expectation is going to be there's going to be some upset as things are happening, as replacements are going into place. Even some things as simple as, it'd be interesting to know what the true effect on railway crossings is going to be. Does it mean that the arms are going to drop 30 seconds sooner or a minute sooner than what we're used to in the past, type of thing? Just understanding from our own point of view how traffic and stuff like that are going to be affected within the community. So, and that would be particularly important as we start gearing up to additional ones. So I look forward to many more discussions on this as we're going along, because this is going to be fascinating and really good for our community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have Deputy Mayor Pachariva.
Thanks, Your Worship.
I'm sorry, pardon me. Did you have a comment?
I did just want to make a comment, if that's
Yes.
okay. I think you raised some really important points. Actually, I think from community that I've been in, crossings tend to be one of the largest safety concerns, both from a vehicular position, but also any pedestrian traffic that may come or interface with those crossings. So I do want to promise that we'll be back, and we are actually striking a region-wide for Metrolinx Community Advisory Committee on crossings and safety to get more feedback from the community on what really at this stage how they think that communities should be involved in that process in terms of crossings and upgrades within the confines. There's a number of things that determine what we can do with a crossing. There's federal regulation, and there's a number of considerations. I think the second point I would make for council overall is that when Leon speaks to track work, I don't want to underplay sometimes how invasive that track work can be. So we start with clearing and grubbing. Sometimes that can mean that you see trees being impacted, right? The loss of some greenery in the corridor, and that always is a concern to residents as we start that process. So we will be working with councillors, especially as we go into segments, to do that work, to work through tree compensation and make sure that the community is involved in anything in and around that work as well.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pachariva and then Councillor McMillan.
Thanks, Your Worship. Leon and Aaron, thank you for coming tonight, and look forward to seeing you on an annual basis. Just wondering, and Councillor Brunet had kind of mentioned it, wondering if you can provide an update with respect to the enhancements at the GO Bus stop on Ontario Street. We've got a lot of information or a lot of commentary from the public about it being open. So, we were looking to do some, enhancement work with you people to put a shelter there, and then we kind of heard that it got waylaid a little bit because there was going to be some improvements with respect to electric car charging stations and some other work that was there that had already was supposed to take place. Hasn't happened yet, so we're going to come into our second winter of an open, kind of area there without a shelter. In our budget this year, we're looking to approve a sidewalk for connectivity So, helping to work with you guys to make it more accessible, to make it, easier to get to light it, to make it, much better, to get the ridership up, to say, we're partners in this, we want this to work, but just wondering where we are on that shelter.
I am going to say that as the rail guys, I don't have a good line of sight on it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I thought you
but
were construction of everything.
so I have counterparts who do BRTs and LRTs and bus overall. So what I can promise is that through staff and formally to council, we can take that back and get information for you on that item.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you so much.
Sorry about that,
No,
but yeah.
quite all right. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks very much for being here. This is great information. Our own local agenda has been carried forward really with a great deal of skill, and that's shown in the bringing of the Go Bus station here to Lincoln as well. Where do we go from here? How can we strengthen the partnership? What more can we do to advance our local agenda other than what has been done so far?
Thank you for that question. I do think, as a number have said, that actually at the local and regional level, the advocacy of staff and the foresight and vision of staff in terms of transit in the area is definitely why we're here today. And I think part of that is, I can give lots of technical reasons around Metrolinx's mandate and core area and a number of other things, but the reality is it's a very positive step forward, and we're happy to build on those relationships. I think there's strong relationships locally, but for us, and in some ways, they're also newer relationships. So we have been within the formal Metrolinx Act, active in a number of communities more formally for some time. We have good partners in Mike and in Matt, and I think that's a good start. But I think it's also coming out to councils and coming out to communities and really trying to understand where collectively we want transit to move in the region over the longer term. So there will be some of us who will continue to come back, and at some point you may not see Leon anymore. It may be bus or it may be other members of the team, but I think it's not to sound dismissive about this at all, but it is about partnership and continued conversation and dialogue around it. We don't make the final decisions on funding of projects. That is for elected governments to do, and we respect that process. But what we do is work with staff to ensure that projects are as ready from a technical point of view as possible, and then respect the process out from there. So the more we can do to support you in that, we're happy to be partners in that process.
Thank you very much. If I might, Madam Mayor, just a comment, not a question, but one of the real oddities, and I think could be a real challenge, is the track coming out of Toronto or Hamilton. There are two parallel tracks until it gets past Grimsby, and it narrows down to only one track. It's only one track through Lincoln, and then as soon as you get out of Lincoln, it goes back to two. Why that was done several years ago, I have no idea. It's a real oddity to me, and it could be a real challenge for the work that you need to do too. So.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things I was pointing out was that adding in that second track through the limits of Lincoln will be part of this expansion.
Yeah.
So that it is a challenge. I mean, we talked about the scope of work associated with that. It is a...
Well, as I said, I never really did understand why CN did it, but they must have had their reasons.
Yeah,
Okay.
train movements are complex.
Yeah.
It's a system and a network, and so all the pieces fit together to run the services or the freight that's required to run through the corridor uninterrupted.
Yeah, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mary Easton. I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you for coming tonight. All very good information and great discussion. And I look forward to future information sessions and learning more about it. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And mine is just a comment too, and it's just that There is absolutely a heightened awareness about GO, certainly from the bus standpoint here in town, but also from the station standpoint, in that, the public meetings that we've had, and just the high-level plans. So there is a heightened excitement about the potential down the road, and we know there's not a definitive date, but just the fact that we're having public meetings and people are coming out to these meetings and seeing the plans, there's that level of awareness that things are happening, and certainly to Councillor Thompson's role as the chair of planning, there's a lot of planning around the potential for that to happen. So again, thank you for coming out, and for those that are watching here tonight, they're seeing that there's another activity around Metrolinx coming to the council. So we want to continue to make that happen. We of course would like to see it happen quickly, and I'm sure the other communities will too, but thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. And if I could just offer, I think it's an important point between planning and local processes, and then being clear and also providing an opportunity for community to understand what's in build, what's future looking and planning. For many of our communities, that's new. In other communities, in places like London, where there's always an ongoing planning process in terms of getting projects ready for the next wave of investment while you're building, that starts to become more regularized, and hopefully in this region it will as well, where we'll be constantly in a cycle of planning for the future and building as we go. So very very good point, and something that I hope that we can deliver on in the public meetings.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillors, I've asked our CAO to also make a few comments because in terms of going forward, the constant for us will be the staff and their involvement, as it has been, and certainly influencing the progress that we've made to date. So I would like Mr. Krikopoulos to make a few comments and close the conversation. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I too want to thank both Leon and Aaron, and of course Matt and his team. They've been incredibly easy to work with. I can't say the same necessarily about myself all the time, although others on the Metrolinx team probably get a little more frustrated with me than these two. But both Leon and Aaron have been, I think, great advocates for what we want to do here in Lincoln, specifically around transit. Specifically on the planning side, and I know I mentioned this to them a number of occasions, and as they were coming in today, this council continues to make decisions and holding transit and holding future stations as something at the forefront of their decision making. So I think that's always something that's important. The challenges or the opportunities with continued advocacy around a station here in Lincoln is something that we need to continue to work with. But there will continue to be decisions in front of council where we look at the future with GO, and those are decisions that we will continue to bring forth to council, whether they be planning decisions. But I think all in all, it is those decisions that will be important, that I think help to build the business case for why this is something that we need to do. So that continued acknowledgement, I think, by both Metrolinx and council about where you're going, and a real focus on that, I think, is critical. So my thanks as well.
Thank you, and I hope that means next time we're in the building, we get more of those cookies. Last time there was cookies, and they were fantastic.
Oh, well, I mean, we can always come up with all kinds of wonderful fare.
We were driving here.
And I would close by thanking you very much for coming and providing a very practical perspective, because we do hear on the periphery about all of the heavy work that has to be done. But I think your presentation tonight made it even more patently clear that there's a good deal of work to be done before we get to the point where this service will be delivered. But I also want, as the mayor of the town of Lincoln, to let you know that in response to that practical information, that we have always been at the table from the beginning, and we will continue to be there. We know that our time will come, but we are being very strategic in our response. We believe that the community wants this service, and therefore we are preparing ourselves so that when our time does come, it can be sooner and then later because we're ready.
Great.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Councillors, we have no correspondence this evening, and we'll move on to reports, starting with Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole Budget, the minutes of November 8th. Councillor Pachariva, would you care to provide highlights of that meeting?
I would love to provide highlights, Your Worship. So the second Town of Lincoln Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole budget meeting was held on November 8th. This was Council's, like I said, second budget meeting. The meeting focus was the draft 2018 capital budget, and review started with a presentation from staff providing supplemental information that was requested by members during our October 30th meeting. Staff also reviewed the considerations used by staff to evaluate and prioritize the projects, and committee undertook a project-by-project review of the proposed capital program. Following committee's evaluation of the proposed capital projects and to set the stage for our next meeting, staff reviewed the budget preparation process, the public engagement efforts that have been undertaken to date, and the main themes that became apparent following the community engagement, including accountability and transparency, financial sustainability, infrastructure sustainability, and service delivery. Staff noted that these themes were key in framing the 2018 budget. The meeting concluded at approximately 10:05, and full details regarding the meeting can be found in the agenda and minutes published on the town's website.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillors, Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend this particular meeting. I was called away for my daytime job to Vancouver for a week. And part of the problem that we continue to have with minutes is that we don't really get a good sense at times of what it is that was really spoken about. I understand that a lot of these items that have been brought forward there was verbal reports provided. I haven't seen anything written, so I'm just wondering, you know, with some of these things, like, you know, like one of the ones I had interest in was the fire department and talking about the long-term plans that were going on with that and a few of these things. So is the expectation, because of, you know, I have to say this isn't well documented, so is the expectation that I have to come in and have a discussion with the CAO or with someone else about what goes on with the meetings, or are there actual reports that can be looked at to know and understand what's going on with some of these things?
We'll consult the CAO, Councillor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, not having heard the first part of the conversation, but I think picking up where I think Councillor Foster is going with that particular question, as it relates to anything we were directed to come back with, and I would say the fire station was one of those items that we were directed to come back with. We are coming back to a future meeting with information on that as it relates to the capital budget. We're likely aiming for December 12th to come back with that information once we hear more tomorrow as it relates specifically to the operating budget in sort of a summary document. I mean, we took a similar approach to what we did last year, and that was anything that council had inquiries about. We came back and shared information with you. I know there was a package prepared for council at that particular meeting where we came back and we shared some of the questions council had specifically around the capital budget, so we can make sure that you receive a copy of that, council, and if there's anything else that we can do to I think improve the process or continue to share more information in a way that is easier for council, then we take that, I think, as a good learning, and we'll incorporate that.
Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important because I think, you know, we go through a fairly significant budget process here, like all municipalities do. But it's always good having, you know, full understanding for the public as well as ourselves on what truly has happened. And I get why we do minutes the way that we do, but just sometimes it's really tough. Obviously there was 3 hours of meeting went on, and it's kind of like there's a paragraph and a half of what went on. So just sometimes it's better to see some of these things. That's all.
I know we've had this discussion before, Councillor Foster, and I would ask the Chair of Finance Administration to look into possibly a change in the procedural bylaw, or if that is the wish of council, or some other mechanism that would allow us to have more information, if that's the wish of council. In the meantime, there will be more detail coming forward. That's my understanding of what you just said, Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just sending an email to staff right now, but we'll make sure the report backs that we did are shared with Councillor Foster, and I think as we go through the process and do a summary of kind of where we've been, more information on what council's directed us to come back with will be shared.
All right, satisfactory, Councillor? Thank you.
If I can just say, the thing is that, we all try our darndest to make sure we meet every meeting. I mean, all of us have work that comes into play every once in a while and stuff like that. And it's very difficult for me to tell my daytime job, no, I'm not going to Vancouver. And then they say, no, you don't have a job. So anyway, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We understand. Councillor Pacioretty.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. And I'll be having a discussion with the CAO to come up with maybe a little more detailed minutes based on budget. In this case, more is better. We like to do our succinct minutes with respect to our committees, and we can detail that. I would encourage Councillor Foster, if he would like to have a coffee, and I can go over that stuff with him. There was a package. We had a very fulsome discussion about the initial meeting that you were at, Councillor. We went through, staff provided us handouts with each of the items. We went by project. If there was some questions or concerns, they were highlighted. They're going to come back again at our meeting in December, where we'll have a kick at everything. We had a very good discussion about the merits of the Vineland Fire Station and those projects, and then followed up by Councillor Thompson's committee with planning and the presentation from FBH the other night, and the whole timeline that Ms. Dale provided on where those fit in, and we'll be looking to bring all of those things together and have that open discussion on what we feel. And we also added a bunch more roads to the road network and had questions around that. So there was some really good discussion on merits of each and every one of the projects. So I'd be glad to sit with you and go through it. And there was handouts, and the CAO, there was handouts, and I think there was electronic copies. So have a look in your box, and maybe I can help you locate them.
All right, any further comments? Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Move on now to the Planning Committee minutes of November 13th. Councillor Thompson, if you will.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to go through the highlights of the planning meeting held on November 13th, 2017. If you're looking for more details, certainly the agenda and minutes will be published on the town's website at lincoln.ca. The meeting started with one public hearing regarding a zoning bylaw amendment application and a draft plan of vacant land condominium application by Phelps Homes, proposing the development of an internal lot in Jordan Station. A number of members of the community attended and addressed committee regarding a variety of issues, all of which will be considered by staff as ongoing review of the application continues. Committee also received delegation from the Lincoln County Humane Society, providing information about services that they provide the town as part of their mandate under the Ontario Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. The committee then dealt with 8 staff reports addressing matters including an assessment of Lincoln Fairgrounds parking and traffic calming opportunities. Report a road allowance closure and sale application by 1650607 Ontario Limited. A building department activity report for the period of July to September 2017. A cell tower proposal for 3666 Claus Road. A proposed official plan amendment application by the Bench Brewing Company. And a summary of and review of town community improvement plan applications, which included a review of some correspondence from the Niagara region regarding the regional incentive programs. And last but not least, a review of proposed changes to the town's animal care and control bylaw, the Clean Yards bylaw, and the public property sign bylaw, which will now be moving towards a public consultation stage of the process. And that was our meeting for the evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Are there any questions to the report? There being none, your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Move on now to Committee of the Whole Planning Minutes of November 14th. Again, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you once again, Madam Mayor. I'm just going to give you the highlights of the Committee of the Whole Planning meeting that was held on November 14th here in the council chambers. The meeting's sole purpose was to receive a presentation regarding the visual concept proposed by the development of, for the development of the Prudhomes area in the town. The property owner and his team provided committee with a three-dimensional virtual walkthrough tour of the development as envisioned by the developer, and discussed the various elements of proposed development as well as its conformity within the town's draft secondary plan, which is also currently under development. And staff are working towards bringing this to a public meeting early in the new year. So that was the long and short of the meeting. It was a very exciting evening, and it was nice to see the visual representation of what the property owner is wanting to do with the property, along with getting some real clarity on the timelines that development is going to start taking place, hopefully, moving forward. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any questions on the report? And I have a motion moved by Councillor Thompson and seconded by Councillor Timmers that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Planning meeting of November 14th, 2017 be adopted and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. Your pleasure on the motion? The motion is carried. And now we have Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole budget. And Councillor Pachariva, if you will.
Thanks, Your Worship. So Monday, or not Monday, on November the 15th, our first operating budget meeting was held, and it was our third budget meeting of the cycle. Staff commenced the meeting with a presentation providing an overview of what an operating budget is, how taxes are distributed between the town, the region, and the school boards, and the various controllable and uncontrollable drivers that influence the budget. In addition, we had a bird's eye view of the 2018 budget pressures, maintaining service delivery levels, changing legislation and regulatory implications, and the long-term financial sustainability. Members considered the presentation, the approximate 6% tax levy increase contained in the draft budget, and requested a variety of pieces of information for our next budget meeting, which is scheduled for tomorrow night, Tuesday, November 21st. You had mentioned earlier, Your Worship, that it was Wednesday. It's going to be Tuesday, so tomorrow night. So I just wanted to correct you on that. So we look forward to, staff coming back with those questions and queries and about service delivery, about potential efficiencies, and look forward to having that discussion tomorrow night.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions to the report? I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor McMillan. Oh, I'm sorry. Just a moment. It's moved by Councillor Pachariva, seconded by Councillor McMillan, that the minutes of the Council Business Planning Committee of the Whole budget meeting of November 15, 2017 be adopted and the recommendations contained therein be approved and acted upon. Pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. We have no motion of compliance necessary this evening. And we have 4 bylaws for consideration. And I have a motion moved by Councillor McMillan and seconded by Councillor Pachariva that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws, number 2017-98, to provide for the delegation of authority and/or resolve certain matters before the Assessment Review Board. Number 2017-99, to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement, GVZ Holding, Inc., et al. Number 2017-100, to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement, 1254349 Ontario Limited. And number 2017-101, to declare Part 1 on Plan 30R-13162 as part of the Common and Public Highway System, 19th Street. Any questions? Your pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. A motion by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Foster, that bylaws number 2017-98, -99, -100, -101, read a first time, be now read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaws. Pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Are there any councillor inquiries? Are there any notices of motion? Are there any announcements? Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. I have 2 announcements. This Friday, November 24th, will be the Christmas in the Village in Jordan from 5 till 9. We'll be lighting the wine barrel tree. There'll be caroling, and there will be Santa hats with for $5, with all proceeds going to Community Care of West Niagara. There will also be a flash mob and photos taken. It's actually a really fun event. The following day, Saturday, November 25th, will be our very first tree lighting at the Fleming Center. It will be our first ceremony of our lighting our tree to celebrate the upcoming festivities. There'll be a free skate, face painting, crafts for the children, hot chocolate and apple cider, and you can get your picture with Santa. And it goes from 5 till 8 p.m. So hope to see everyone there.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor McMillan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Timmers was talking about was November the 24th and the 25th, but there's also an event on the 23rd on Thursday this week, and that is the Friends of Lincoln's History meeting at the 20 Valley Golf Club. They're going to announce and launch their interpreter plaque program, and the initial plaques that have been produced and are going to be erected in town will have an emphasis on the agricultural businesses and the businesses that have made significant contributions to that industry in our towns through the years. So that's an exciting event coming up as well. And I plan to be there for that. And they've asked me there to represent you, Madam Mayor, because you'll be winging your way on a 14-hour flight.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Ranjima will be representing the town on the Saturday night event, and I take it that you will be in Jordan, Councillor, and I think it would be very fitting if you represented council on that evening, if you would. Thank you. Yes, all of this great fun and the celebration of lights, which we've made a great deal of for the last 3 years. We do have 2 closed session items scheduled for this evening with the town solicitor. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Thompson that council adjourn to closed session in order to retain advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege including communications necessary for that purpose, a matter pertaining to real property, and a matter pertaining to a draft bylaw. Pleasure on the motion. The motion is carried. Mr. Clerk, are we staying in here? We'll be staying in this room. Thank you very much for attending.